Welcome back everyone to A History of Horror. Today we're going to look at 1978's Halloween, a little independent horror film directed by John Carpenter. Halloween didn't invent the modern slasher genre. That honor actually goes to Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Black Christmas. What Halloween did do, however, was bring the slasher movie formula to mainstream audiences. John Carpenter was hired as the writer and director, creating a film on the simple premise that a masked killer stalks babysitters on Halloween. The movie opens with Carpenter's own music score playing over the credits as a flickering jack-o'-lantern approaches the audience. We then shift to a POV shot of someone wandering a house, picking up a knife and mask, and wasting no time killing a young girl who had just hooked up with her boyfriend. It's a very basic concept, but it's effective in setting the tone for the rest of the movie. When setting up for a story that's based on building suspense, it's usually a good idea to open with something shocking just to get the ball rolling. And holy shit, the murder was done by a kindergartner. The scene is meant to subvert your expectations, but as Michael Myers' parents stand there, I can't help but wonder how they're just now realizing their kid is crazy. How did they not ever notice that the kid probably has a dead cat in his room or something like that? Anyway, we fast forward 15 years later. Michael's been institutionalized since killing his sister, and Dr. Loomis has been a psychiatrist during that time. The doctor is on his way to escort Michael to a maximum security prison where he would spend the rest of his life. They arrive on a dark and stormy night, arriving to see mental patients walking around the vicinity. This scene is forever creepy to me. If you're ever driving by a mental hospital for the criminally insane and you see patients grazing, just leave the area. Nothing good is going to come out of you getting out of your car. In the ensuing chaos, Michael escapes because someone at the hospital apparently taught him how to drive a car. We then shift to Michael's hometown of Haddonfield, Illinois. Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, the daughter of Psycho's Janet Leigh, is a babysitter and high school student with seemingly absent parents. Michael Myers takes an interest in her, and from here on, most of the movie plays out as he acts creepy and stalkerish around Laurie and her friends. Meanwhile, Dr. Loomis arrives in town to hunt down Michael Myers, kinda like Van Helsing is always trying to hunt down that menacing Dracula. Carpenter creates a suspenseful atmosphere where you're wondering how many people Michael will kill before Loomis finally catches up to him. Deborah Hill co-produced and co-wrote the screenplay, covering the dialogue between Laurie and her friends, while Carpenter worked on the dialogue between Loomis and the other adult. Being a former babysitter herself, Hill was able to create female characters that aren't complex, but they feel authentic. They're basically exaggerated versions of the friends that she had when she was in high school. Laurie is the classic every gal who appears innocent, but she'll still smoke a joint and talk about hot guys. Her two friends Annie and Linda are almost polar opposites. Annie is dry-humored and has a sarcastic comment for everything, while Linda follows the bubblegum ditzy cheerleader archetype who says totally way too much.
Totally.
Yeah, I think I got it.
Totally dark.
He's totally not here.
I'll be totally wiped out.
I don't think you have enough to do tomorrow.
Totally.
It's totally fucking annoying. So on to the killer. There's a lot to unpack with them. At first glance, it looks like the prototype for all the slashers we'd see later on, but Halloween goes a bit deeper than that. During the White Flight, parents thought they could protect their children from the violence of the inner city by moving to quiet suburbia. This was also around the time we'd see our first generation of latchkey kids, as homes were fragmented, both parents worked, and their kids were left to raise themselves on television and peanut butter sandwiches. For Michael Myers himself to be a suburban kid turned killer, it totally slaps the whole concept of security across the face. In Halloween, it's not about visiting the wrong hotel or ranch in Texas. In this case, Michael Myers is the party that comes to you, to your neighborhood. He wears a white expressionless mask and doesn't say a word throughout the movie. His movements are calm, almost robotic, and he just observes his surroundings, waiting for the right moment to kill for no particular reason. He never runs, but instead walks at a brisk pace, moving with a purpose. Just like Ted Bundy, he was considered mentally ill and psychotic early on, but over time, Dr. Loomis begins to see him for who he really is. Absolutely and terrifyingly evil. The way he consistently stalks Laurie, he could have sliced up her or her friends at any moment, but instead deliberately allowed time to be creepy and let them get scared. Toward the end of the movie, he goes above and beyond to create a haunted house, showing his collection of corpses as he waits in the shadows for his moment to stab her to death. For Halloween, it's all about the suspense and ambiguity of Michael. No one knows if he enjoys killing, what his motive is, or why he wears the mask. He's just that kind of guy. The line of sequels and reboots for Halloween makes for one of the most convoluted and confusing franchises in the horror genre. Halloween 2 was released in 1981 and was a direct sequel to the original. Halloween 3 came out 2 years later, but it had nothing to do with Michael Myers. The idea was to create an anthology series, but audiences hated the shit out of it, so from then on, every Halloween had to bring back Michael Myers again and again and again. Halloween H2O came out in 1998, which completely ignored these sequels. And then in the 2000s, Rob Zombie came out with 2 Halloween movies that were based more on his vision than the source material. The most recent addition to the franchise is the new trilogy that's currently in the works. They take place 40 years after the events of the first Halloween, and they're pretty entertaining overall. The series is confusing as hell, but if you're new to the franchise, I'd recommend watching the first Halloween and then waiting a little while before following up with the new ones. You can watch the Rob Zombie editions as well if you're a fan of his other work, but I wouldn't consider it a requirement.